Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. This is going to be a pretty short one because it is just one update to one of the San Diego Comic-Con panels, which of course is happening next week. We're only a few days away. So, the official Avatar Instagram account posted about the Braving the Elements podcast panel, and their lineup features someone who was not mentioned on the official SDCC rundown. So you can see here we have the hosts, of course, here, plus we know Greg Baldwin and Michaela Murphy are going to be there. We knew Cara O'Neill was going to be on the panel, but now we get Isabella Boettcher is also going to be there. And this is interesting because, as you can see there, they even note here that it's someone from Avatar Studios. Now, we talked about it before, that of course we have our two official panels, Braving the Elements and then also the Avatar Legacy Publishing panel. But then I did point out to you guys that there is this other random sort of more industry panel, What to Know When Selling an Animated Show, which Isabella Boettcher is on, and they note she is the creative executive at Avatar Studios. So while I don't think we necessarily are going to be expecting news from this one, really, if she is here to reveal news, I guess it probably is on the podcast panel. So, does this change our speculation? Does this really open the door to us getting some big news or not? I think you have to be at least thinking that this has to mean something, because I just feel it's 2024. Avatar Studios has been a thing for so long. You can't just go through these panels anymore and not acknowledge that Avatar Studios is doing all of this other stuff, this animated stuff that is on the way. I don't think if there is any news, it's going to be anything, I would say, huge, just because I do feel they would have Mike and Brian, and I do feel they probably would more promote the panel as like teasing the idea that there is Avatar Studios news. But the fact that they have her here, I think, means that there has to be something, because what is she going to be talking about on this panel otherwise? Now, we also have to note here, she's been on the podcast before. November 2022, they had a Braving the Elements podcast where they brought on Isabella as well as someone else from Avatar Studios. Basically, I think it was, again, she was, even 2 years ago, she was the creative executive, and then the other guy was like the Avatar Studios, I think, just assistant, kind of did a little bit of everything. And she confirms on this podcast, if you listen to it, it's right towards the start. She says that as a creative executive, she is basically involved in all of the projects, in terms of kind of round table meetings about everything. They didn't quite refer to the animated projects, but again, 2 years ago they were being so vague about that stuff. But the idea is she's involved in that stuff, hence why I guess she's going to be on a panel talking about that sort of thing. So she talked about that, how she's involved with like all of the publishing stuff, but also a lot of the product stuff as well. Creative executive, I guess, refers to pretty much any creative endeavor at Avatar Studios. So that's a high up enough position to where, okay, sure, like she should be able to tell us about some stuff going on here, especially because if they are talking about publishing, they have Cara O'Neill here as well to talk about this stuff. Now, because we have the publishing panel itself, are we going to spoil all the reveals for publishing potentially ahead of time? Which kind of makes me think, is there something else going on here? Is there a bigger publishing announcement that they need to make separately, or what? But then we get into the idea of, is the podcast panel even going to be a place for news? I would say just the fact that they're even promoting it at all. Like they're highlighting who's there at on Instagram. They're highlighting someone from Avatar Studios as being here, is drawing people's attention to this as if something notable is going to happen. And I just feel it's a little bit unacceptable if this ends up just being 40 minutes of like, Avatar is cool, isn't it, everyone? You know, it was cool working on Avatar, like voice actor stuff, and then Cara O'Neill like vaguely mentions comics and Isabella vaguely mentions Avatar Studios stuff, it does feel like there has to be something here. And I don't think that is having too high expectations. I think that is entirely reasonable if you're bringing someone like this on. The only, I think, explanation otherwise is just that because Isabella is involved in all this other stuff, I think it does mean she has some sort of official title when it comes to the podcast. I think it's mentioned somewhere that like she might be like one of the producers in some way of this podcast. But I'm also like, why do you need your producer on? Like, especially if you're highlighting this, like Avatar Studios, that to me feels like, okay, is there going to be an announcement? So you're having the high up person there because of that. There is other avenues again, because I think we all want there to be Avatar Studios animated news, but there is the option for publishing, like I said. There's the option for them to talk about merchandise, because of course there is that Jazzwares deal for the toy line next year, so that is a pretty big thing that I know a lot of people have let go kind of under the radar. But Avatar having its own kind of deal basically with a pretty big toy brand is notable. So that is a thing. Other stuff you're kind of wondering, like, are they going to mention or make a big deal about, say, like Avatar in concert? But again, you don't have Jeremy Zuckerman there. So does that open the door? Can you just announce the Book 2 soundtrack here and that be like it without him? I guess that is certainly something you could do, and I think that is something we're waiting for. Like, if it is going to be roughly like once a year, we're getting towards the time where they should start getting towards that announcement of what's going on with Book 2. But I do feel people absolutely, just because you've said this now, will be going into this expecting something. It's just, I think, all about setting your expectations in the right spot. What could they possibly do here? So straight away, I would rule out there being anything like a trailer, or even most visuals. Like maybe we get an early kind of poster style thing, because I do think they need some sort of an official visual to make the movie feel real. Because like we're getting towards a year and a half, and it still feels like it's barely in people's minds for the most part, except something that's coming in the future. Avatar Studios have so many projects that they're working on. I think you should get around to announcing that first series. And if you're going to do a basic announcement, that is certainly one thing that you could do here. But I just don't know what level of news necessarily that's going to be, because that probably leaves the only other thing that they probably could do as being like confirming Braving the Elements is going to get its next season, because they're getting towards the end of Book 3. So they're going to be moving on to Korra, I'm guessing, and that would be season 4 of the podcast. But that feels obvious. Like I don't really associate Braving the Element being confirmed for its next season as basically being news, because it's the official podcast that still gets panels at like every con. Of course they're going to continue with it. But because it's an official podcast, I expect there to be news at these big events. I think that's just the fact of the matter, especially if you have official people who can deliver news at your thing. So we'll see what happens there. I would say the announcement of this makes me a little bit more excited, but not like excessively so. So this could be super hit and miss. This could be absolutely nothing, or it could be a surprise hit in terms of how much news there actually is. I don't think it really changes our expectations for the publishing panel, in that maybe they'll drop the news that Roku Book 2 is in fact a thing, just a basic announcement of that. In terms of the comics, if there's going to be an announcement, it probably will be the next Avatar The Last Airbender comic. So that would be One Shot number 6, which would be about, a different character. We don't know anything about it, but the timing should work out to where that should be the case. The problem with the Mako comic is that if they don't have a date, I don't really see them mentioning anything, because they don't have anything else to say. So you want to see them mention it, but if they can't give a date, you do get worried about it, and there's a bit of a kind of communication style issue going on there. Otherwise, the idea would be that, yeah, we expect Dark Horse to release more books. Like, they need to announce more stuff, Beasts of the Four Nations, plus potentially anything else, because we're getting into the range where we're a year and a half to go. I'm assuming with publishing and stuff like that, you're going to want to do a little bit of build up yourselves to set the stage ahead of Avatar Studios so that you have everything working properly, fully together when Avatar Studios hits. Maybe the publishers will have stuff to say. When it comes to other stuff, like I'm not expecting too much from a lot of the FCE Randy Rabai conversation, just because the book will only be just out, and unless book 2 of Roku gets confirmed, there's not too much to say there. The Webtoons person being here, I don't know if that's just going to be promotion for Webtoons. Is there an announcement to be had here? No clue. No clue whatsoever. But I'm going to wrap it up there. I've already done quite a bit of speculation ahead of Comic-Con this year. But the big news here, Isabella Boettcher is going to be here at the main Avatar panel from Avatar Studios. She's the creative executive, so a high up position at Avatar Studios. Her being added to the panel, do you think this sets the stage for news? What are your expectations now for this panel, or are they still in exactly the same spot? Let me know in the comments below. But yes, that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.